On August 14, 2018, at approximately 3:45 p.m., Officer David Chen responded to a noise complaint on Maple Drive in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. A neighbor had reported the smell of rot coming from the property next door. When Chen approached the detached garage at the rear of the lot, he noticed something unusual. Flies, hundreds of them, swarming near the garage's side door. The door was slightly ajar. Chen pushed it open. The smell hit him immediately. Metallic, organic, overwhelming. He called for backup. Within minutes, the entire property was cordoned off. Crime scene investigators arrived with full protective gear. What they found inside that garage would answer a question families across 3 states had been asking for 2 decades. Who was taking their daughters? The pattern began in 1998. Lindsay Morrison was 19 years old, a sophomore at Kent State University, studying graphic design. On September 22nd, she told her roommate she was meeting someone about a freelance project, designing a logo for a local startup. The meeting was scheduled for 6:00 p.m. at a coffee shop in downtown Kent. Lindsay never arrived at the coffee shop. Her car was found 3 days later in a grocery store parking lot 12 miles away. Her purse was inside. Her wallet, phone, and keys sat on the passenger seat. There were no signs of struggle. Security footage from the parking lot showed Lindsay pulling in at 5:47 p.m., sitting in her car for several minutes, then getting into a dark sedan that pulled up beside her. The license plate was obscured by mud. The sedan drove away at 5:53 p.m. Lindsay Morrison was never seen again. Between 1998 and 2003, 4 more young women disappeared under similar circumstances across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. All were between 18 and 23 years old. All were students or recent graduates. All were last seen getting into vehicles after responding to what appeared to be legitimate job opportunities or freelance work. All had received professional-looking emails or phone calls about projects that seemed real, until the women vanished. Each disappearance was investigated separately. Different jurisdictions, different detectives, different theories. Some cases went cold within months. Families held vigils, distributed flyers, hired private investigators. Years passed with no answers. The women seemed to have simply evaporated. Then, in 2003, the disappearances stopped. For 15 years, there were no new cases matching the pattern. Investigators theorized the perpetrator had died, been imprisoned for another crime, or moved away. The families never stopped searching. The cases remained open, but leads had long since dried up. The files collected dust. Until August 14, 2018. Detective Sarah Vega arrived at the scene at 4:30 p.m. She had been with the Cleveland Police Department's Major Crimes Unit for 11 years. She had seen disturbing crime scenes before. This one was different. The garage had been converted into something else entirely. The windows were covered with blackout curtains and plywood. The concrete floor had been covered with industrial plastic sheeting, now yellowed and brittle with age. Against the far wall stood a metal shelving unit. On the shelves were plastic bins, labeled and organized with meticulous care. Each bin contained personal items, driver's licenses, jewelry, clothing, wallets, cell phones, photographs. Vega counted the bins. There were 11. In the corner of the garage, partially covered by a tarp, investigators found what the flies had been drawn to: human remains, in an advanced state of decomposition. The medical examiner would later determine the body had been there for less than 2 weeks. But the bins told a different story. A longer story. The items in those bins dated back 20 years. The property belonged to 58-year-old Gordon Mitchell, a divorced warehouse supervisor who lived alone. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, unremarkable. He kept to himself. He mowed his lawn. He waved when passing on the sidewalk. Mitchell was not home when police arrived. His vehicle was registered to an address in Columbus, Ohio, 140 miles south. Columbus PD was notified. At 7:15 p.m., officers located Mitchell's vehicle parked outside a Hampton Inn near the airport. Mitchell was in his room, packing. He was arrested without incident. In his vehicle, investigators found a laptop, a burner phone, and a leather binder. Inside the binder were printed emails, meticulously organized by date, job postings, correspondence with young women about freelance opportunities, meeting arrangements. Each exchange followed the same template. Each one was completely fabricated. Mitchell had been planning to leave town. The smell from the garage had become too noticeable. He knew it was only a matter of time. The items in the garage bins were processed and cataloged. DNA analysis began immediately. Forensic anthropologists were brought in to assist with identifying the remains. The investigation expanded rapidly as detectives realized the scope of what they had uncovered. Within 48 hours, investigators had matched items from the garage to 5 of the missing women from the late 1990s and early 2000s. Lindsay Morrison's student ID, her silver bracelet with her initials engraved on the inside, the leather portfolio her father had given her for her 18th birthday, Amy Carlson, who vanished in 2000 from Pittsburgh, her class ring from Duquesne University, Morgan Palmer, missing since 2001 from Morgantown, West Virginia, her distinctive handmade earrings, Natalie Brooks, disappeared in 2002 from Akron, her phone, still in its purple case, Christine Wolfe, last seen in Columbus in 2003, her driver's license and the silver locket her grandmother had given her. The body in the garage was identified through dental records as 22-year-old Elena Rodriguez. She had been reported missing from Cleveland on July 28, 2018, 17 days earlier. She had told her family she was meeting someone about a marketing position. They never saw her again, but the garage contained 11 bins. 6 women had been identified. 5 remained unknown. Mitchell was transported to Cleveland and held without bail. The interrogation began on August 16th at 9:00 a.m. Detective Vega led the questioning, accompanied by FBI Special Agent Marcus Freeman. The case had become a federal investigation given the multi-state jurisdictions involved. Mitchell exercised his right to have an attorney present. For the first 3 hours, he said nothing. He sat motionless, expressionless, while investigators presented the evidence, the bins, the personal items, the DNA matches, the fabricated emails, the pattern of disappearances spanning 2 decades. Finally, through his attorney, Mitchell made a statement. He would provide information about the remaining victims in exchange for life in prison rather than the death penalty. Ohio had capital punishment. Mitchell knew what he was facing. The prosecution considered the offer. The families of the missing women were consulted. After 48 hours of negotiation, a deal was reached. Mitchell would provide complete information about all victims and the locations of any remains. In exchange, he would plead guilty to 11 counts of aggravated murder and receive 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Mitchell accepted. Over the course of 6 days, Mitchell provided detailed information about each victim. His confession was methodical, clinical, devoid of emotion. He described his methods with the same precision he had used to organize the bins in his garage. Mitchell had begun in 1998 after his divorce. He created fake businesses and job postings on early internet job boards. He would target young women who were new to the professional world, eager for opportunities, unfamiliar with the warning signs of fraud. He would establish email correspondence, build trust, arrange meetings in public places. When the women arrived, he would approach them with a story. His car had broken down nearby. Could they give him a ride to the meeting location? Or the meeting location had changed. Would they mind following him? The variations were slight but effective. Once the women were in his vehicle or following him, he would drive them to secluded locations. After 2003, Mitchell stopped because he had remarried. His second wife moved into the house on Maple Drive. The garage was locked. Mitchell told her he used it for storage and that he had lost the key. She never questioned it. They divorced in 2016. Mitchell kept the house. 2 years later, the urges returned. Elena Rodriguez was his first victim in 15 years. She was also his last. Using Mitchell's information, investigators conducted searches at 7 different locations across 3 states. 4 were wooded areas in rural Ohio. 2 were abandoned properties in Pennsylvania. One was a construction site in West Virginia that had been developed into a strip mall. Between August 2018 and January 2019, forensic teams recovered the remains of 4 additional victims. The other 5 women's remains could not be recovered. Mitchell claimed he had scattered them in a river or they had been destroyed when properties were developed. Without physical remains, those cases remained listed as missing persons, though families now had confirmation of what had happened. The 4 recovered victims were Claire Donovan, 21, missing since 1999 from Youngstown, Ohio; Melissa Jang, 20, disappeared in 2001 from Erie, Pennsylvania; Hannah Price, 23, vanished in 2002 from Wheeling, West Virginia; Victoria Nash, 19, missing since 2003 from Toledo, Ohio. DNA confirmation took months. Families were notified as identifications were confirmed. Funerals were held. The women who had been missing for 2 decades were finally laid to rest. Gordon Mitchell's trial was scheduled for March 2019. It never took place. On February 8th, Mitchell entered his guilty plea in Cuyahoga County Court. The courtroom was filled with family members of his victims. Some wept, others sat in silence. A few wanted to speak. The judge allowed victim impact statements. Lindsay Morrison's father spoke about the 2 decades of not knowing, of hoping against hope, of the torture of uncertainty finally replaced by the finality of grief. Elena Rodriguez's mother described her daughter's dreams of becoming a marketing executive, of the future that had been stolen. Amy Carlson's sister read a letter describing the hole Amy's absence had left in their family. Mitchell listened without visible reaction. When asked if he had anything to say, he declined through his attorney. The judge sentenced him to 11 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. Mitchell was transported to the Ohio State Penitentiary. He is now 64 years old. He will die in prison. The case led to significant changes in how missing persons cases are investigated across state lines. In 2020, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia established a joint task force specifically focused on identifying patterns in disappearances and sharing information across jurisdictions. The task force is named after Lindsay Morrison, the first known victim. The FBI expanded its database for tracking similar patterns of abduction, incorporating new algorithms to flag cases with matching characteristics before years pass without connection. Law enforcement agencies across the country receive training on recognizing signs of serial predation that spans multiple jurisdictions. For the families, the discovery brought both closure and renewed trauma. Many had spent 2 decades in a state of painful hope, believing their daughters might still be alive somewhere. The confirmation of death was devastating, even as it answered the questions that had haunted them. The Morrison family established a foundation in Lindsay's name, providing resources for families of missing persons and funding forensic research. The Rodriguez family became advocates for improved online safety education, particularly for young people seeking employment opportunities on the internet. Elena Rodriguez's younger sister, Isabella, who was 12 when Elena disappeared, graduated from law school in 2023. She now works as a prosecutor in the Special Victims Unit in Cleveland. In her office hangs a photograph of Elena, smiling, full of life and possibility. The garage on Maple Drive was demolished in 2019. The property was sold and a new home built on the lot. The families of the victims requested that the items recovered from the bins be returned to them after the investigation concluded. Most said yes. Some chose to leave them in evidence storage. The memories were too painful. Detective Sarah Vega retired from the Cleveland Police Department in 2022. She gives talks at law enforcement conferences about pattern recognition and the importance of connecting cases across jurisdictions. She keeps a photograph on her desk of all 11 victims, young and smiling, taken from happier times. She says she owes them that much. Gordon Mitchell remains in prison. He has given no further interviews. He has expressed no remorse. According to prison records, he receives no visitors. The families of the 5 women whose remains were never recovered continue to hold out hope that someday, somehow, they will be found. Ground-penetrating radar technology improves every year. New construction projects occasionally uncover old secrets. Hope, however irrational, is sometimes all that remains. On August 14th every year, the families of Mitchell's victims gather at a memorial garden established in Cleveland's Rockefeller Park. 11 trees were planted, one for each woman. Small plaques bear their names, their ages, and a single line: taken too soon, never forgotten. The memorial garden sits near a pathway where people jog and walk their dogs and children play. Life continues around these 11 trees. That's exactly what the families wanted. They wanted their daughters remembered not just as victims, but as the vibrant young women they were, full of dreams, full of potential, full of life. Lindsay Morrison, Amy Carlson, Morgan Palmer, Natalie Brooks, Christine Wolfe, Claire Donovan, Melissa Jang, Hannah Price, Victoria Nash, Elena Rodriguez, and one name still unknown, belonging to the remains in bin number 7, the woman who has never been identified despite years of forensic analysis and nationwide missing persons searches. She is buried in Cleveland, her headstone reading simply, "Unknown, but not forgotten." Someone is still looking for her. Someone still wonders where she went. Officer David Chen still works for the Cleveland Police Department. He responded to a routine noise complaint on a summer afternoon and uncovered one of the most extensive serial murder cases in Ohio history. He says, he can't look at flies the same way anymore. The trail of flies led to a garage. Inside that garage was the answer to 20 years of questions, 20 years of searching, 20 years of families living in the terrible space between hope and despair. The mystery is over. The horror is not forgotten. The women are remembered,